I am genuinely perplexed by this question. Do you have to be a good person before getting started working with divine deities? My friend, if that were the case, no one would be working with divine deities. As a Christian witch, and therefore coming from a theologically Christian perspective, one of the most often repeated refrains you're going to hear from our side of the fence, the town, whatever, at least, is that everyone is a sinner. No one is perfect. Everyone has fallen short. Because that's just what it means to be human. No one is perfect. No one is going to be 100% good all the time, and no one's going to be 100% bad all the time either. It's just life, right? There are days where, we act in ways that we know we shouldn't. There are days where we are put in a system or an environment that is simply not conducive to us being our best self. We are put in survival mode. We are put in all these situations that just at the end of the day, they don't help us be a quote-unquote good person. And the whole thing about divinity is that they know that. And they're not here to just judge us and point fingers at us, but to help us learn how to detach and therefore better regulate ourselves, so that when we are dealing with systems and environments that we can't single-handedly change, if for nothing else, we can at least change how we react to them, right? I find this way of thinking of, I need to perfect myself before I approach divinity, or else divinity is going to judge me. This is a mindset that needs to be unpacked. This is something that, in my armchair psychology opinion, very much still comes from a place of that old evangelical kind of mindset, that old, steps-based, laundry list of rules-based, high control religion that tells you that if you don't do everything perfectly, then you deserve to be judged, shunned, or otherwise, ostracized for your actions. And that's never how God has worked. One of the most impactful things on me really was when I went to church and I was hearing my priest explain the scandal that was the parable of the prodigal son, right? That whole thing about this dude who has two sons. One of them is always faithfully working, always doing his best to really honor the family name and help on the farm and blah, blah. And then the other son who just says, you know what, Dad, fuck you. Give me my inheritance. I'm done with this family and I'm leaving, right? And so the father gives him his half of the inheritance, which in that time period basically meant that you were cut off from your family because you got your part of the bargain and you forsook the name in return. You forsook the family name. You forsook your responsibilities to the land, to the lineage and everything else, and you were just off on your own. And the thing that makes that story so scandalous is that when the prodigal son comes back, having spent all his money and having absolutely nothing left anymore of his inheritance, he gets ready to come back and sell himself to his father into slavery to, at least have some place to live. And when he comes back, he doesn't even get to really say what he was planning to say to his dad before his dad drops everything, runs over and embraces him and, puts on good sandals on him, puts the ring and the robes on him, and says, hey, brother, come slaughter a calf. We're going to have a feast. Your brother is alive. He's back. He's here, right? And the brother, who never left, is pissed because he's been faithful this whole time, working this whole time, doing everything he's supposed to do this whole time, and he never got any kind of reaction like that. He never got any kind of rewards or praise for that. He just kept doing what he was doing, and so he was upset that his brother got all this attention. But in the father's view, his son that was dead, his son that was gone, was back, was alive again, and that is more precious than anything in the world, and that forgiveness and that love and that just joy that he's back overrides all sense of, but he did wrong, but he doesn't deserve it, blah, 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 blah. Because God's grace is not something that you earn. It's something that is just freely given. Now, again, that's a very Christian purview. I can't speak for all expressions of divinity or all religious systems, but divinity in general, the thing about it, again, is that they're not here to torture you. They're not here putting up a barrier to entry when it comes to contacting them. The biggest thing that gets in the way of people contacting divinity is exactly this mindset, is exactly this fear of being judged, of having to meet some criteria of checklist before you even get in there. And if that were the case, then Divinity really would have nothing to even do with us. Their whole thing is they're trying to teach us, trying to help us, trying to get us to grow. If we've already done all the growing, what's there left to do? So don't let any fear of being judged or anything stop you from working with whatever divinity you want to work with. Of course, expect that they will hold up a mirror to you. Expect that you won't be able to just continue being who you are. You will still be expected to, do the work part of work with. You'll still be expected to learn and to grow and to change. But they're not going to judge you for not already coming pre-assembled to them. They're the ones helping you do the assembly. So I do hope that just gives you a little something, a little bit of solace on your walk.